This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guest today is artist Kristin Stoeffler and Lauren Tucci from the Gilded Pear Gallery. Not surprisingly, Kristin's work is going up in the gallery in the coming weeks. So first off, ladies, welcome.
Hi, thanks. Hi.
Glad that you're here. Lauren, let's start off with you because Kristin and another artist are doing a kind of a joint exhibition that opens on the 18th of October. And tell me just a little bit about Open Air.
Open Air was something that I put together with these two artists specifically. David Gordinier is the other participating artist. And I just felt very strongly towards their work and talking about the space between the sky and the land. And Dave's work is inspired by Midwestern scenes as well as some other Western scenes. But most of Kristin's is of Iowa.
And let's just lead right into that, Kristin. So you are a native Iowan.
Indeed.
Grew up in what part of the state?
I grew up eastern Iowa.
Okay. And you mentioned in some of your artist materials that your family, you married another native Iowan. Your families still own farms up in the northeast part of the state, Clayton County area.
Yep, my dad's side of the family had farms through that area, and then my husband's family has some property up there as well.
Now, did you grow up on a farm yourself, or are you just kind of a secondhand farm experiencer?
Totally secondhand, but grew up from the time I was little. My grandparents had a farm, so grew up on the farm. Aunts and uncles had farms. Yeah, lots of farmland, lots of driving around the state.
And at what point did you decide that, you know, kind of one of your missions in life was going to be to translate your feelings about the land of Iowa into paintings?
Ooh, wow. Okay, that's a tough question. I guess when I graduated from college, from the art school at Iowa, and I needed to start painting on my own, I needed to come up with sort of my own motivation for doing that. In school you're taught, like, here's what you're going to paint next. And so trying to come up with a sense of what meant enough to me to spend that amount of time in my free time to continue to sort of cultivate that. Landscapes were that for me, and understanding sort of that medium in the context of who I was and the relationship of the land, and then using my time painting to sort of explore that and to continue to sort of work in that space was really it was a great jumping off point for me between school and then becoming sort of an independent painter.
You can't talk about painting landscapes in Iowa and not think of Grant Wood. And of course, in the case of Grant Wood, he spent his early career really trying to be a French Impressionist, and then made the decision, and there are some fun stories about the people who influenced him, and said in essence, you can be another one of 8 million French Impressionist style painters, or you can do something totally your own, which was what led him to paint in his own style and go back to his roots. But it sounds like to me you always kind of had in mind that that this land that means so much to you was something that you always wanted to have be a part of your art.
Definitely, and that's a really great point, because I went and got that first canvas before I did my first landscape, and I was thinking, I should go out and look at a bunch of landscapes and kind of figure out what I want my style to be. And then I decided I wasn't going to do that, and that I was going to think more about, why I was going to paint landscapes and what they meant. And instead of, knowing that would be influenced by looking at all of these different painters, like, just jump into that and see, what was that going to mean from my perspective, without having a sense of sort of prescribing that or pulling pieces from this artist and that artist, but really, how would I see these trees? And that came out to be something kind of different than.
Do you go to specific places and paint them, or do you just kind of think about all the sites and places you've seen in your life and kind of create an imaginative version of some place that you've been that has stuck in your mind?
No, these are all, each of the paintings has been a place that spoke to me very specifically. And so that's why a lot of them are of, the farms that have been in the family. But every once in a while, there's a skyscape where you're like, stop the car, pull over, like, or I look out the front door and I'm like, check out these clouds, we gotta go chase them down. And so there is an element of that, like they pop up or they have been there already.
Of course, Kristin made a very specific point of turning off her phone. Lauren forgot, but that's fine.
So sorry.
It's just something that happens in today's modern society. So, and again, it's still, I'm just interested in your process. So we have this vision of the artists with their canvas set up literally in the country where they're painting, but I'm guessing that it's a combination of, maybe a little of that, but probably more, isn't it more about going out and taking some photos and taking them back to your studio?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I want to be able to spend as much time. I mean, it takes me months to finish a painting, so it really is a process for me in that sense, and the work is very iterative and it's done in these sort of elaborate layers that don't translate into, like, I could never sit in a field and paint the field because I have to wait for X layer to dry before I can put the next layer on so that I can create these really sort of saturated scenes. So to have them turn out the way that they do, it has to take, months.
Takes a lot of time.
Right.
That's a lot of time to
right.
drive to Garnavillo and sit in a field.
Yeah, no. And so if I'm there, I'm like thinking, oh, okay, where's the light going to be in the morning? And what time would I have to get up, with my coffee and my boots and hike out? And, when does the sun rise? And how do I want it to be hitting these things? And so there is this sort of premeditation with some of the work, but then other times, like I said, you look out and there's a cloudscape and you have to go chase it down because you know where it's going, but it's moving and you have to follow it. So it's very back and forth, but either way, it's like the land's telling you something and you want to tell that story.
Lauren, now, talked a little bit about the thematic similarities between Dave's work and Kristin's work, but now having had Kristin describe it, now from perspective of somebody coming in to see the exhibit, kind of, how's it going to, as a curator, how did you arrange things to, compare and contrast, their styles, and what was your thought process there?
Oh, I love those questions. So Kristin's work is, I don't want to call it pop or surreal or anything, but it's a little more high key, where Dave's pieces are going to be a little bit more quieter for color, but they're a little bit more realistic, much more detailed, where you're focusing on like the detail of the clouds, and then your colors are just so vibrant. Dave's has a lot more white space in between, and so say there's a scene off in the distance, you can see the mist, so that's some of the contrast there. And then Kristin works very large, actually, and Dave's pieces are going to be a little bit smaller, and a couple of them are going to be like I think 30 by 40 size, and then yours are like 48 by 60.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
your
they'll-
landscapes
they'll
are
be that
landscape
difference, too.
sized.
They're landscape size. Yeah.
Right, it goes into the whole like, oh, I can't really take this with me.
Right, no. Right. We'll just blow off the easel.
Sure.
Right.
So you've got an opening reception where Kristin and will Dave be in town for that too?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. And when will that be?
It'll be October 18th from 5 to 7 p.m.
And how long will the exhibits be up?
And the exhibit will be up until, I believe, November 29th. Cheat sheet here, sorry. Yes, November 29th.
Okay.
So
And where is Gilded Pear, for those who don't know?
it is on 3rd Avenue, and if you know where Jeff Jones is, it's right across the street. It's right off of 380 if you take the 7th Street exit.
Easy to get to.
Yep.
Well, again, the opening reception is the 18th of October, and sounds like a beautiful and fascinating. We're landscape fans at our house, so this is going to be a must at the greenhouse, I'm sure. I want to thank you for being here, and just have fun at the opening reception, and good luck with the exhibit.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio most Thursdays and Fridays at 10:20, or download and watch the podcast on your own schedule at kcck.org/culture, or using your favorite podcast app. I'm Dennis Green.